And welcome once again to another video. Today, my teammates and I will be talking about the TPRS methods. We will cover topics such as what is it, how to apply it correctly in class, and what does a teacher achieve by using this method. So, without further ado, let's begin. What is TPRS? Well, this is a language teaching method. The, the TPRS method stands for teaching proficiency through reading and storytelling. Now, let's talk about a little about its history. During the 90s, this person, Blaine Rain, who at the time was a Spanish teacher in the US, succeeded in teaching this language by using the TPR method. Now, do not get confused. The TPR method and the TPRS method are completely different. Having clarified that, we can continue. Shortly after, his students stopped improving their Spanish skills because they claim this method to be boring if used throughout long periods of time. So, what did he do to counter this problem? Well, Blaine Rain was familiar using Stephen Crushing's theories, and he strongly believed that any student would acquire the language of their choice naturally. So he managed to combine the TPR method with stories, and the result was the TPRS method. Using this method in class is going to improve or boost two specific abilities. The first ability to be boosted by this method is going to be reading, as the students are told to read long tales or books. The second ability to be boosted by this method is going to be speaking, as the students are told to retell everything they read in previous stories or tales.
Now, turning to the TPR steps, the TPR storytelling is broadly divided into three steps, which include show, tell, and read. These structures are the core of each lesson. Let's begin with step 1, show or establish meaning. In this step, students are introduced to new vocabulary by using translations and gestures. Here, teachers pick just 1 to 3 target words. It may not sound like a lot, but limiting the phrases will allow the teachers to focus on them and provide a lot of repetition for the students. It's important that the words given during the lessons are written on the blackboard or in another place where the students can easily see them. For example, if your target word is the English word jump, write it down on the board with the translations. In this way, the students can glance at the board anytime they forget the word during the lesson. Once the students have the vocabulary and the structure, the teacher can ask questions about the students' personal lives using the target phrases. These questions are known as personalized questions and answers, or PQA. To ensure these questions are comprehensible to the students, the teacher uses a variety of techniques and comprehension checks. The goals of the teachers using the step 1 is to provide as many spoken repetitions or new structures in content as possible.
Spoken class story. During the second step, learners listen to a story which includes the vocabulary introduced in the step number 1. The story needs to be short, simple, and entertaining. It should include as many repetitions of new words and phrases as possible. Learners listen to the story several times so they can improve their comprehension. Then learners answer to a series of repetitive questions which provide even more exposure. These questions are based on the so-called circling technique. Let's say you are reading about a man who wakes up in a hospital and does not remember his name. Circling questions based on this information might look like this. The man wakes up in a hospital. Does the man wake up in a hospital? Where does the man wake up? And so on. Essentially, you start with a simple sentence and then you ask yourself some questions about that sentence that can be answered based on the information you have. This is a great way to practice
TPR storytelling Step 3 Reading. In this step, the students learn to read the language structures that they have heard in steps 1 and 2. A number of reading activities are used in TPR storytelling. For example, class reading. The class reading is the most common type of reading activity in TPR storytelling. The teachers will typically include a class reading as part of every lesson sequence. This reading activity is based on the history that the students learned in Step 2. First, the teacher will often begin the class reading by reading aloud the history, then having the students translate it into their first language. Next, the class will discuss the reading in the target language, and finally, the teacher will ask questions about the reading itself and about the students and their lives with the goal of making the discussion 100% comprehensible. The second reading activity is free voluntary reading. Many TPR teachers include free voluntary reading in their foreign language programs. This activity improves the students' attitudes toward reading. It is free reading because students are free to choose the materials they want to read, and it is voluntary reading because students can choose to or not to report in class on the reading they have done. The students are also free to or not to read at home, but many teachers prefer to focus on spoken histories in class. The next reading activity is shared reading, often called kindergarten day. It refers to the practice of the teacher reading a children's picture storybook to the students. The name is intended to conjure up the image of being read to as a child. But the activity can be done with any age group. The teacher reads to the students, showing them the pictures, asking them questions, and generally making the story comprehensible. And the last reading activity is homework reading. This is a specific reading that it is assigned to all the students for homework. The teacher can give a quiz on the reading when the students get back to class. This can be used to prepare students for a class discussion, but it is usually only used with advanced students, as at home the students may have no one to turn to if they get stuck.
have the same basic aim of keeping the class comprehensible, interesting, and as efficient as possible for language acquisition. There are many techniques that we can use in this method. The first one is comprehension checks. The most direct way of finding out if the students understand the language is to ask them what it means. In TPR storytelling, teachers check comprehension early and often. There are a few ways of doing this. The first one is time sign out. The teacher agrees on a sign for the students to use if they understand something. It helps to the students to feel comfortable to ask questions that they don't understand during the class. Finger count. The students hold up their fingers to show how much they understand. For example, if they understand 100% of the class, they hold up their 10 fingers. If they understand 70% of the class, they hold up their 7 fingers, and so on. What does insert word here mean? The teacher asks the students what the specific words mean. Teachers generally use this after they ask a circling question, but they didn't get a strong response. And finally, we have what did I just say? The teacher asks the students what did I just say in the student's first language. This way, the students can be sure of the full meaning of the sentence or question they just heard.
Consider another technique, the circling. Circling is the practice of asking a series of simple questions about an statement, all in the target language. The point of asking these questions is not to force the student to speak. Rather, the questions are a method of checking comprehension while simultaneously repeating the target vocabulary in context. The circling questions is always about content that has already been established. There are four basic types of circling questions: yes, no, either, or, and WH questions like what or where. To amplify the types of circling questions in context, let's consider the following video.
You want to play baseball? Oh. Does Marcos want babies? Or does Marcos want to play baseball? What is Marcos' problem?
Teach to the eyes technique. Teaching to the eyes is a way of connecting with the students while talking to them in the foreign language. It gives the teacher a good indication of whether or not they understand what is being said. Also, it is helpful in preventing problems with discipline. This technique refers to the fact that teachers will be able to interpret the students' level of understanding through the way that their eyes speak for themselves. For example, a student who has not understood the subject will take his eyes off the teacher. Also, everything has to do with the face expression. And a student who has understood the subject will keep a confident look.
The disadvantages of using this method. One of the advantages is our students can explore with the language. It means that our students will be able to learn new phrases or new vocabulary by using the target language itself. If we use this method in our class, the classroom environment is always gonna be interactive and active. Surveys have shown that students find the TPRS method to be fun and engaging. Students work towards creating meaning and understanding one another. It means that the language is not learned, but acquired. Let's talk about the disadvantages of using this method. The first disadvantage is that accuracy is not a focus, but rather fluency is the focus. The TPRS can be problematic for shy students as the class is active and everyone has to be interacting one another. The classes can also be exhausting. Both teachers and students must be fully energized in class. Otherwise, there won't be any progress.